Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're exploring something that touches all of us, something fundamental yet often fleeting, joy. We've gathered insights that really delve into how we can find and nurture this quality within ourselves. We'll be looking at ideas around being present, the art of letting go, and even how our challenges can become, well, unexpected pathways.
Okay.
Okay, let's begin to unpack this.
It's interesting, isn't it, how we often search for joy in the external things, as if it were some treasure hidden out there somewhere.
Right.
Yet the material we've looked at suggests something quite different, an oasis within, you could say, a kind of constant source that resides inside us, but it's often veiled by the noise, the busyness of our daily lives.
An oasis within.
Yeah, it's like the story of someone lost in a vast, scorching desert, only to discover a spring bubbling up right within their own reach, unexpectedly.
That image of an inner oasis is really powerful. And it leads us, I think, directly to this first core idea, mindfulness, sati, this practice of truly being present in each moment without judgment.
You know, a story really struck me, the one about the Buddha and a farmer whose crops had failed, completely failed. By all accounts, he should have been, devastated.
Literally.
But the Buddha noticed this glimmer, a genuine smile, when the farmer looked at his son, just a fleeting moment. But the insight here, I think, is that these small sparks of happiness, they're always available. It's our attention or paying attention that awakens them.
That's profound. And it makes you wonder, how often do we miss those little glimmers in our own day?
Constantly, probably.
It's so easy to be carried away by our thoughts, isn't it? Our minds often dwell on what's gone or what might happen, leaving precious little room for what is right now.
Yeah.
The material reminds us of those really simple pleasures that are constantly around us. The warmth of a morning coffee, maybe, or the sound of birdsong.
Things we just tune out.
Exactly. Things we often overlook because our minds are just elsewhere. It really raises the question, what would happen if we truly, consciously paid attention to these moments? And it's fascinating that modern psychology is sort of echoing this ancient wisdom now. There's actual research showing that when we actively savor everyday experiences, even something as simple as, say, eating a piece of chocolate mindfully,
Right.
it can lead to increased happiness and reduce stress. It's like mindfulness isn't just a nice philosophical idea, it's a practical tool for really experiencing our lives moment by moment as they unfold.
And there are simple ways in, aren't there? Like taking just a few conscious breaths. That can help anchor us right back here in the present.
Just stopping for a second.
Exactly. It's not about trying to achieve some extraordinary blissful state all the time. It's more about cultivating a consistent awareness of the here and now and embracing all of it, the pleasant and, well, the less pleasant too.
Because life will always have challenges.
Absolutely. As the material implies, life will always have its difficulties. Mindfulness isn't about escaping those, but about meeting them with a greater sense of clarity and openness. That image you mentioned, the hidden spring, it's a constant reminder that this source of inner peace, maybe even joy, it's always accessible if we just learn to pay attention.
Okay, so we're starting to explore this inner world through mindfulness, through sati. Now, the material shifts focus a bit to another key idea, the art of letting go, often described as non-attachment, or upekkha.
Ah, yes, letting go.
There's this really powerful image used holding sand in your hand. You know, the tighter you squeeze, the more it just slips through your fingers. It really illustrates how clinging, holding on too tight to things can actually lead to loss, or at least to our own suffering when things inevitably change, which they always do.
It's a very, very apt analogy. And the story of the young monk trying to catch the butterfly, it complements it beautifully, I think.
Tell me about that one again.
Well, his intense desire to possess it, to hold onto it tightly, it actually prevented him from truly appreciating its beauty in the moment. It was flitting around beautiful, but he just wanted to have it. It was only when he finally kind of surrendered that need to control, possess, that he experienced a wave of peace and actually a genuine connection with the butterfly, which landed near him then.
Because he stopped chasing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This speaks directly to the impermanent nature of life itself. When we try to hold too tightly to, well, anything really, possessions, relationships, even our own expectations about how things should be, we set ourselves up for pain because fundamentally nothing stays the same.
It sounds simple, but it's incredibly difficult in practice. And this idea of letting go, it seems to have these different facets explored in the material. One that really stood out for me was acceptance. Acceptance. And it's clarified, it's not about resigning ourselves, like giving up. It's about actively embracing reality as it is without resistance.
Right, acknowledging what is.
I really liked the comparison to a surfer riding a wave. If you flow with the wave's energy, there's a sense of grace, of ease. But if you fight against the current,
You wipe out.
you wipe out, yeah. And the suggestion of journaling, just reflecting on daily difficulties without immediate judgment, that feels like a really practical way to start cultivating this kind of acceptance.
It really is. Journaling can provide that crucial space, a space to just observe our experiences without immediately labeling them good or bad, or getting totally caught up in the emotional reactions.
Stepping back a bit.
Precisely. By simply acknowledging what is happening, honestly, we can begin to loosen our resistance to it, and that creates a space for a more thoughtful, maybe clearer response, rather than just being overwhelmed.
Okay, so acceptance is one piece. Then there's compassion, karuna. This idea of releasing judgment not just towards others, but crucially towards ourselves too.
Yes, that self-compassion piece is vital.
The point that self-criticism really just fuels our own suffering, perpetuates it, that resonated deeply with me.
It's a common trap, isn't it?
Yeah.
That inner critic.
And the underlying understanding that every single one of us, at our core, just wants to be happy and free from suffering. It's such a powerful motivator to try and extend kindness both inwards and outwards.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, isn't it, that there's actual research showing how acts of kindness, doing something good for someone else, can release oxytocin and other feel-good chemicals in our own brains.
Really?
Yeah, it literally strengthens our social bonds and boosts our own mood. It's biologically wired.
So being kind isn't just nice, it actually feels good physiologically.
Exactly. What's significant about compassion, Karuna, is how it connects our inner world with the outer world. When we direct kindness outward, we simultaneously cultivate warmth and connection within ourselves.
Yeah.
That simple act of giving, even in really small ways, holding a door, leaving a kind note,
Right.
it can be profoundly rewarding and contribute directly to our overall sense of well-being, maybe even joy. It shifts our focus from our own struggles, our own stuff, to our shared humanity.
That makes sense. Okay, and finally, within this whole umbrella of letting go, there's non-attachment itself. It's important, as the material points out, that this isn't about becoming indifferent or, not caring about anything. That's not it at all.
No, it's a common misunderstanding.
It's more about engaging fully with the present moment, whatever it holds, but without these rigid, fixed expectations about how things must turn out.
Yes. Engaging fully, but holding outcomes loosely.
The analogy of planting a garden seemed perfect here. You prepare the soil, you sow the seeds, you water them, you do your part.
You put in the effort.
Right, you put in the effort, but ultimately you have to trust the process. You can't stand there demanding the plant grow faster or produce a specific number of flowers on your schedule.
You surrender to the natural unfolding.
Exactly. It's about setting intentions, having goals maybe, but allowing for uncertainty, for life's inherent unpredictability. That visualization they suggested, imagining a tree shedding its leaves in a gentle breeze, the leaves representing worries or attachments just drifting away. That's a beautiful image for this kind of release, creating space.
It is. Non-attachment is really about finding that delicate, ongoing balance between effort and surrender. We can still set goals, work towards things we care about, absolutely, but we release that compulsive need to control every single step of the journey and every single outcome.
Which is liberating, potentially.
It allows for much greater flexibility and, paradoxically, a deeper sense of freedom. The image of the ocean waves just moving and flowing, trusting their own course without fighting it, that beautifully captures this. It suggests that joy arises more readily when we allow it to, moment by moment, rather than trying to grip it or force it into existence.
So, okay, we've explored being present through mindfulness and this really important art of letting go, embracing life's flow, upekkha. Now, the material takes a really interesting, perhaps challenging turn. It looks at what it calls the alchemy of suffering.
Alchemy, yes. Transformation.
This idea that we can actually transform our pain, our difficulties, into something positive, maybe even into joy. The image used is quite striking. A deep river, maybe turbulent on the surface,
Yes, yeah.
but with a calm, steady current flowing underneath, representing the surface chaos of life and the inner stillness we can potentially find, even amidst it.
This perspective on suffering, often referred to in Buddhism as dukkha, is really central. It's not seen as simply a negative force, an enemy to be avoided at all costs.
Which is our usual instinct.
Absolutely. Instead, it's viewed as an inherent part of our shared human experience, and perhaps surprisingly, as a potential teacher. A profound teacher even.
A teacher. How so?
Well, the notion that suffering itself can be a doorway to joy, like a beautiful lotus flower emerging pristine from muddy waters, is a core paradoxical idea here. It suggests that our greatest growth, our deepest insights, can sometimes come directly from our hardest challenges.
Wow, that's counterintuitive. The story of Maya, the woman who experienced great loss, really illustrates this point, doesn't it?
It does. She sought solace, naturally, after losing everything. And the teaching she received from the abbot, it was so simple but powerful.
With the stone.
Yes. He handed her a stone, asked if it was heavy. She said yes. Then he told her the weight doesn't come from the stone itself, but from her clinging to it, her holding on to it.
So the suffering wasn't just the loss, but her resistance to it.
Exactly. It's such a clear way to understand that the burden of our suffering often comes less from the external events themselves and more from our internal resistance, our clinging to how we wish things were instead. And that realization that difficulties can actually become opportunities for growth, for learning, that's a real paradigm shift in how we view challenges.
A total shift. Alchemy.
Absolutely. The paradox of finding joy within suffering lies in this very shift in perspective. Suffering often arises from our resistance to what is. Joy, on the other hand, can emerge from our openness, our acceptance, even in the midst of adversity. Think about the Japanese art of kintsugi.
Repairing broken pottery with gold.
Precisely. It's about honoring the wounds, the breaks, not hiding them, but highlighting them with gold, seeing them not as flaws, but as part of the object's unique history, symbols of its resilience, something that adds to its story, its beauty.
That's a beautiful metaphor for our own life.
Isn't it? And again, there's even research on this phenomenon. It's called post-traumatic growth. It shows how people who face significant challenges can, over time, experience increased gratitude, deeper compassion, a stronger sense of purpose.
So the trauma becomes a catalyst.
It can be. Asking ourselves honestly, what is this experience teaching me? What can I learn here? Can be a powerful first step in this alchemical process of transformation.
Okay. And then there's a specific practice mentioned called tonglen. It means giving and taking.
Yes, from Tibetan Buddhism. A powerful compassion practice.
The idea of breathing in the pain and suffering of others and breathing out peace and compassion, I mean, it feels really counterintuitive at first, doesn't it? Taking on pain.
It does seem backward to our usual conditioning, which is to push pain away. But the way it's described, finding a quiet space, maybe visualizing someone who is suffering.
Okay.
You visualize their pain as, say, dark smoke. And as you inhale, you breathe in that darkness, not with fear, but with compassion, with the wish for them to be free from it.
Okay, breathing it in.
And then as you exhale, you breathe out light, healing energy, peace, whatever feels helpful, sending it to them. And the visualization shows that darkness being transformed into light within you before you breathe it out.
So you're transforming it.
Yes. It's an active transformation. It's a really beautiful image of dissolving the perceived boundaries between ourselves and others and actively cultivating compassion. And you can expand it from one person to a group, to all beings.
Wow. That sounds intense, but potentially very profound.
What's truly transformative about Tonglen, I think, is its direct emphasis on our interconnectedness. By consciously, willingly taking on the suffering of others, even just mentally, we begin to break down that illusion of separateness. We cultivate a deeper sense of empathy.
It connects us.
Deeply. It's a courageous practice, no doubt, because it involves facing pain, our own and others. But ultimately, it's said to open the heart and foster a much greater sense of universal love and connection. Extending that visualization, as you said, to include more and more people really highlights the potential for collective healing and maybe even a shared sense of joy arising from that connection.
Okay. So finally, the material brings all these threads together, mentioning these 7 principles of joy. We've talked about mindfulness, letting go, and compassion. What were the others again?
Yes, the framework includes those 3, and also gratitude, simplicity, creativity, and unity.
Gratitude, simplicity, creativity, unity.
Right. And the key point made is how they're all interconnected. They aren't separate boxes to tick off. They're more like different notes or different instruments coming together to create a harmonious melody, a symphony of joyful living.
A symphony. I like that. It feels like it's offering us a really comprehensive, holistic way to navigate life with all its inevitable ups and downs, but with maybe a more open and hopefully joyful heart.
Exactly. These principles aren't meant to be isolated practices, but rather interwoven aspects of a whole approach to living. Cultivating gratitude shifts our attention from what we lack to what we do have.
Which changes everything.
It really can. Embracing simplicity creates space, mentally and physically, for what truly matters. Nurturing our creativity reminds us of our innate capacity for wonder and expression. And recognizing our fundamental unity with all things fosters that deep sense of belonging and connection. Together, they create a strong and resilient foundation for cultivating inner joy, even amidst challenges.
The concluding thought, with the image of a single candle illuminating a dark room, representing our own inner light, that's really beautiful, very hopeful. And the encouragement, the call to action, to maybe commit to practicing just one of these principles each day for a week with intention and curiosity, that feels so doable, so accessible.
Brings it down to earth.
Yeah, it reinforces that finding joy isn't some distant, lofty goal we might reach someday if we're lucky. It's a path, a journey we embark on with each mindful step, each conscious choice.
And ultimately, I think the core message is one of empowerment.
Yeah.
Like that phrase, joy is not something you wait for, it's something you create.
You create it.
You actively create it by embracing the lessons that are often hidden within our challenges, by cultivating compassion, starting with ourselves, and by living with mindful awareness, moment by moment. We actively participate in bringing more joy into our own lives, and in doing so, perhaps we become a source of light, a small beacon of hope for the world around us too.
A truly profound way to think about it. Yeah. It feels like this deep dive has given us not just, information or ideas, but a real invitation. An invitation to explore these principles within ourselves.
Indeed, that inner oasis of joy, that hidden spring we talked about at the beginning,
Yeah.
it really is always there, within reach, just waiting to be discovered and then nurtured, tended to, like that garden.
Always there. So for you listening, maybe we can leave you with this invitation. Take a moment, perhaps after this, to consider which of these 7 principles, mindfulness, letting go, compassion, gratitude, simplicity, creativity, or unity, which one resonates most with you right now in this season of your life.
Just one.
Just one. Perhaps it's simply taking a few more moments of mindful breathing throughout your day. Or maybe it's consciously looking for things to be grateful for. Or maybe reaching out with one small, deliberate act of kindness. Just consider how you might explore that one principle, gently, curiously, a little further in your own life this week.
A quiet experiment.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today.